Hi there, my name is Zach Kellogg, and this is my lesson plan on turtle trapping and notching. I think this course could be useful as a preliminary for practicum involving Herp Week or wildlife management practices. So for the learning objectives here, I chose some things that we can do in class given the 50-minute constraint for the lesson plan. I thought about wanting to do a workshop outside, but I figured we'd do a dry run inside, and I still wanted to go with this lesson plan because it is something I'm passionate about and felt like I could do well. So for the first thing is I'm going to talk about a couple different traps, and they're universally used when doing turtle trapping surveys, and then safety precautions when doing them to avoid turtle mortality within the traps, which is why I chose this first comic here about 50 years later, I'm still a turtle, kind of underlying that they're long-lived species and that mortality of these animals is a really big deal for the population. Second thing for our learning objective is to identify Midwest turtle species. And then we'll describe how to humanely handle and safely handle or describe how to humanely and safely handle turtles. And then lastly, students will learn how to do turtle notching and then how to read it, as that's a vital part of mark and recapture studies. Aquatic and semi-aquatic turtles, and then the Amoideae family, standardized assessment protocol for Blaney's turtles. So this is just a really short, succinct read on best management practices when it comes to turtle trapping and doing turtle visual surveys, what to look out for before, and how to measure morphometric data as well as turtle notching. So I thought I'd kick out this lesson plan with a think, pair, share. This is something Ronnie and I did when we led our group discussion, and it's something I really liked to kind of break the ice and get some conversation flowing. So these will be the two prompts. So what are a few major reasons why we perform turtle surveys, be it visual or trapping surveys? So these will be, mainly for talking about population, viability analyses, mark and recapture studies, those sorts of things is what I'm going to be looking for during this part of the discussion. Just kind of popping in and out of little groups with some Socratic questioning. And then a more subjective topic, just to get some students to share some personal preferences out of all the species that you recently learned about. Which do you think will be the most difficult to trap and mark? Why? Is there another method to detect the species? So, this could be a range of anything from smaller species of turtles like eastern musk turtles to common snapping turtles, just due to the nature that is hard to get them out of the net, and thus mark. And other methods for detecting species, I'm basically just looking for visual or netting or transect surveys, things like that. So after that, we'll break into group activities. I'll have two types of nets stationed out in the classroom. These will be your standard hoop net, as seen in the top right, and our Palomar net, our smaller turtle trap in the bottom right here. And with these, they can kind of get a feel for dry run testing them out. As shown here, they we'll kind of talk about the safety of like keeping 4 to 6 inches of air of the net above the water so the turtles that are inside the net can breathe. Like I said, there's plenty of mortality from turtles drowning in these nets after capturing. And on the Promar, there's this green line, as you see on the left side of the Promar trap, to show the anchor line here. These are collapsible traps. On the right side, you can see the little hinges. So it collapses from one side to the other, and the little hinges hold it in place when it pops out. And it has a little pouch for the bait to go in it, and then a zipper on the other side to retrieve the turtles out of the net. Whereas with the hoop net, after you set it up with the post, you have to then take it off the post and bring the whole hoop net to shore before emptying out the turtles in there. So then I'll move it to a whole class discussion. So what are the major things to consider when planning a turtle trapping survey? Things I'm looking for here is just topics on weather, prior surveying, looking for areas of high traffic, bottlenecking, basking areas, what might seem like good feeding areas as well for the turtles. What are some challenges that come into play? I'm just kind of looking for the different methods for the traps. One's better for deeper water, one's better for shallow water. One requires an anchor line, the other one requires a setup with posts. One's easier to retrieve individuals out of, where the other one isn't, which can be different depending on what kind of species you get in there. Hoop nets are more challenging to get smaller individuals, where Promars are better at that. And then I just put in this last point because I really want to drive home the safety of wildlife, and wildlife diseases are really problematic, especially ranavirus. Currently, it's a hot button issue, which is causing quite a few declines in turtle species. Specifically, we've seen it in box turtles. So reducing the spread of things like ranavirus and also snake fungal disease in aquatic systems is paramount. And then lastly, I figured we'd finish with an in-class quiz. So students can literally get out a blank sheet of paper, or I can have some scrap paper where they can number and then write down the answer right next to them. I figured I would do 2 points per question, which would add up. I have about 9 questions here. So the first is just a turtle IDs quiz. So I picked some common species and some species that would be likely to be found within Promar and hoop net traps. So first one here is a Blanus turtle, which is state endangered, but I figured it would be pertinent for students to know that, and whether it would show up into the trap for state records. If we're doing trapping surveys, we're very likely to get snapping turtles within the net, so I expect students to be able to identify common snapping turtles. Third here is another common species. It's ubiquitous, is the Midland painted turtle. If you're doing any sort of turtle trapping around here, you are definitely going to get some snapping turtles in your net. And another confusing species with the painted turtle, which is why I put them here side by side to kind of drive home how alike these species are, but some of the subtle differences is the red ear slider. So the red ear slider has more of a dome-shaped shell. It doesn't have any red on the shell, and the only red part about it is the part over the operculum here. And here we have a couple of species. I grouped these ones together because you're likely to see them in larger bodies of water, larger rivers, or big open ponds. So the first one we have here is a very interesting species. This is the spiny softshell turtle. specifically eastern. This one we can't do turtle notching with, which is another reason why I included it here, because it's one of the only species within the state that you wouldn't be able to do any turtle notching with. Specifically, we'd have to pit tag these individuals. Number 6 is map turtle here, which can look very similar to a painted turtle sometimes too, but notice the lack of red and this more ornate shell. It also has a more predominant keel on the shell, whereas the painted turtle is more flat. It's squished down kind of like a pancake. On the last slide here, we have a couple questions on turtle shell anatomy and notch code. So the first one is the top part of the shell, which is the turtle's carapace. The second one, part B, is the bottom part of the shell, which is called the plastron. And then the red dots are supposed to indicate a notch pattern for a particular individual. In this case, this individual would be 256. And so yeah, thanks for watching. That's my lesson plan when it comes to doing some turtle trapping, surveying, and notching.